My sister excluded me and my daughter from the birthday dinner. Minutes later, we were enjoying a VIP meal while she paid the minimum bill of 4,500 Brazilian reals. My name is Marina, I'm 38 years old, and if I had to describe my relationship with my sister Beatriz in a single sentence, it would be this. She's the type of person who warmly hugs you in front of everyone while stabbing you in the back, and then convinces the audience that you tripped and fell on your own. I've never been the confrontational type. I'm that person who prefers to swallow discomfort, who chooses her battles so carefully that people forget I have any fighting capacity at all. But I remember. I remember every poisoned comment, every time I was left aside, every moment when I was told not to exaggerate when I knew I wasn't exaggerating. Beatriz is 41 years old and is the personification of suburban perfection. Impeccable smile, magazine-worthy decorated house, 3 children who look like they came out of a children's clothing catalog, and a successful husband she displays like a trophy. Her social media presence is a careful curation of spontaneous moments that probably took 15 takes to get perfect. We grew up in a family where comparison was the language of love. Beatriz was always the exemplary daughter. Perfect grades, volleyball team captain, prom queen. I was the quiet younger sister who preferred books to parties, who liked writing stories instead of being the center of attention. Our parents never said it openly, but the partiality was embedded in everything. When Beatriz crashed the car at 17, it was because she was worried about final exams. When I scratched another car's bumper in college, I was irresponsible and careless. Her mistakes were understandable. Mine were character flaws. I didn't realize how deeply rooted these patterns were until my father died. He was the one who maintained balance, even if imperfect. After he was gone, it was as if the thin layer covering the rot had been ripped away. Suddenly, every dinner became a power struggle. Every invitation had conditions. And whenever I thought we were getting along, she would do something small and petty to remind me of my place. But I endured it. I always endured it. Especially because of my daughter, Sophia. Sophia is 11 years old and is everything to me. Smart, funny, sensitive. Her father and I separated 4 years ago, relatively amicably, and since then I have full custody since he moved abroad for work. He sends money religiously and calls every Sunday, but the daily raising is up to me. I never imagined being a single mother would be so natural, but it is. Maybe it's because Sophia makes everything easier. She's the type of child who holds the door for strangers, who says thank you without needing to be reminded, who draws handmade birthday cards for all her cousins. I don't know how I got so lucky, but I did. A few months ago, Beatriz invited us to an upscale restaurant downtown to celebrate the twins' birthday. Nothing too elaborate, she wrote on WhatsApp. But dress appropriately. They have a dress code. That should have been my first warning. Beatriz never does anything that isn't elaborate. I knew she had chosen that place to impress her friends, maybe even to show off a bit, but it was for the twins, and Sophia loved spending time with her cousins, so I accepted. I even bought a new blouse for myself and a pretty dress for Sophia, because I didn't want to arrive there and be silently judged. On the day of the dinner, traffic was hellish. We arrived only 6 minutes late, but I apologized as soon as we entered. The receptionist smiled politely and led us to the private dining area. It was completely glass enclosed, with soft lighting, magnificent hanging chandeliers, and waiters in vests. Sophia's eyes widened. "Mom, this place is amazing," she whispered, pulling my sleeve. "Can I order pasta?" "You can order whatever you want, love," I smiled. We followed the receptionist down the hallway, and I saw the group immediately. Beatriz and her husband Ricardo were already seated at a large table, along with the twins and another couple I didn't recognize. There were 9 chairs in total, although only 4 were occupied. The others had carefully folded napkins, menus, and small name cards. I slowed down, confused. My name wasn't on any of the cards. Before I could say anything, Beatriz looked up and smiled with that fake surprise expression she had perfected over the years. "Oh, Marina," she said, as if she hadn't seen me enter. "I thought I had told you we only reserved for 9 people." I blinked. "You didn't tell me. You said to come." "I did say yes," she confirmed with a sweetly venomous voice. "But we had to finalize the guest list for the private room, which has limited seating and will be full with the twins' friends and their parents." She gestured vaguely toward the table. "There's only room for 4 people from our family." I looked around. There were no staff bringing more chairs, no one making space. Just 9 prearranged chairs, like at a wedding rehearsal dinner. Sophia was standing behind me, looking up with that polite and apprehensive smile that children give when they realize something is wrong, but don't want to make a scene. Ricardo leaned back in his chair, sipping from a wine glass. You really should have confirmed beforehand, Marina. I felt the heat rise in my face, but I swallowed it. I understand, I said quietly. I could have argued. Could have confronted her right there. But I didn't. Something in the air told me this wasn't just a misunderstanding. It was a planned message. I smiled firmly, put my hand on Sophia's shoulder, and guided her to the other side of the restaurant. The receptionist, God bless her, saw us wandering and asked if we needed help. I gave her a quick summary and casually asked if there was any available space, preferably private. She hesitated for a moment before smiling and saying, "Let me check with the manager." And that's how I met Marcelo. Marcelo, the restaurant manager, must have been in his early 60s. Gray hair, impeccable suit, and the kind of presence that immediately makes you feel you're talking to the right person. His forehead furrowed as I narrated what had happened, without bitterness, just facts. They didn't reserve seats for you and your daughter, even though you were invited? Apparently there's only room for 4 family members, I said, using air quotes. Marcelo gave me a long look and nodded once. Give me 10 minutes. 15 minutes later, Sophia and I were seated at a beautiful table on the other side of the restaurant. Soft leather chairs, fireplace view, and a waiter who welcomed us as if we were royalty. I don't know what Marcelo did behind the scenes, but it was clear we were being well taken care of. I kept my composure. I didn't go back to Beatrice's table. I didn't make a scene, but I could see her through the glass divider. Every time she looked and saw me smiling, chatting with Marcelo or laughing with Sophia, her face contracted a little more. Then came the moment that changed everything. The waiter came back and said, "Mrs. Marina, the manager wanted you to know that everything has been arranged as discussed." He then looked at me puzzled. "What did you arrange?" I just smiled. Because it was at that moment I realized this wasn't going to end the way Beatrice expected. It wouldn't be another scenario where Marina silently accepts the blow, makes excuses, and disappears into the background. No, this time I had a plan. And when dessert arrived, everything would fall into place. Sophia was drinking her orange juice with one of those fancy metal straws when I noticed Beatrice lean over and whisper something to Ricardo. He looked at us and snorted into his wine. One of the twins, I think it was Lucas, craned his neck to look in our direction before being gently redirected by his mother. The whole episode unfolded like a pantomime, subtle enough to allow plausible deniability, but sharp enough to hurt. I didn't waver. Instead, I smiled and waved across the room, as if we were old friends reconnecting from a distance. Marcelo passed by again and observed. "Everything's still good here?" he asked, casting a curious glance at the other table. "Perfect," I replied. "Better than expected, actually." Sophia smiled. "Mom, can I order the shrimp risotto?" "Of course you can," I nodded. "We're celebrating." She tilted her head. "What are we celebrating?" I just smiled at her. That we're not sitting over there. It would have been easy to let it go, attribute it to Beatrice's personality and move on. But something had changed. Maybe it was the way Sophia looked at me, hesitant but trying to be strong. Maybe it was the apparent ease with which Beatrice exercised her power and humiliated me in front of my daughter. She always knew how to walk that fine line. Petty enough to make you question your own anger. Subtle enough that exploding would make you look like the problem. But this time it wasn't just about me. This time she didn't just pull the chair out from under me. She also pulled it out from under my daughter. And I wasn't going to let that pass. The dinner was wonderful. I let Sophia order whatever she wanted. Fernando, our waiter, kept our drinks full and our plates hot. In the middle of the meal, Marcelo passed by again and informed me that if we wanted dessert, he had something special planned. I assured him we would love it. Beatrice's table was visible through the reflection in the glass behind Sophia's seat. Their side was lively, but she checked every few minutes, probably wondering what we were talking about, what we were laughing about, and what I had said to the manager. But the breaking point didn't happen until the cake. Beatrice had apparently arranged a large shared dessert to be brought to her table for the twins, a mountain of chocolate and brownies topped with sparkling candles that would drive any child crazy. When the waiter brought it with music playing and candles crackling, the entire restaurant's focus turned to her table. Sophia turned to look and smiled. "That looks amazing." "It does," I agreed. Beatrice raised a champagne glass in our direction and silently mouthed, "You missed out." Subtle, refined, and completely irritating. I nodded, not in anger or defeat, but just to acknowledge. But that's when it hit me. This wasn't a casual insult. The entire event had been orchestrated. Beatrice never wanted us to participate in the dinner. The exclusive room, the allocated seats, and the spectacle were all planned. It was a statement, a demonstration of power. She wanted to show her friends that she was the star, that she could freeze out her own sister while remaining likable about it, that she could exclude her family without feeling guilty. Because in her world, appearances were everything. And I knew she would try to make me look ungrateful. Marcelo passed by again just as they were finishing the cake. "Everything still to your liking?" he asked. "Couldn't be better," I replied. "Hey, do you make custom desserts for events?" He raised an eyebrow. "We do. Want me to send a menu?" I paused, then leaned in a bit. "Actually, how hard would it be to make a replica of that dessert?" I discreetly pointed to Beatrice's table. "Just bigger." Marcelo tilted his head. "Bigger. Same base but triple the size. Make it theatrical. I'll pay for everything." He gave me a mischievous smile. "I'll see what I can do." With that, the stage was set. I thought that would be the end. The small finale. A small demonstration from me, offered with a smile and courteous tone. I didn't need to be petty. Didn't need to raise my voice or make a scene. I just wanted Beatrice to feel what she made us feel. But then something happened that turned the night upside down. Sophia had excused herself to go to the bathroom, and I was looking at my phone when a shadow passed by our table. I looked up and saw Ricardo standing there, wine glass in hand, that perpetual smile on his face. "We didn't expect to see you here," he commented. I blinked. "You mean after you told me there were no seats for us?" He laughed as if we were sharing a joke. "Oh, come on, it's not that serious. You know how Beatrice gets with party planning. She has that whole guest list system. It's just numbers, right?" "Just numbers," I repeated, ignoring the bait. "But you could have said something," he continued, swirling his drink. "Could have asked for a chair or whatever. Nobody was trying to dismiss you." I looked at him. "You told me I should have confirmed beforehand." Ricardo shrugged. "Well, yeah. I mean, if you really wanted to sit with us, you would have made sure, right?" I had to bite my tongue. Sophia returned to the table and stopped when she saw Ricardo standing there. "Hi, Uncle Ricardo." He gave a wave. "Hi, Sophia." Then he turned his attention back to me and lowered his voice so only I could hear. "Look, I know you don't always feel included. But it's not personal. Beatrice just doesn't like chaos. You and Sophia, you're kind of unpredictable." I blinked. "Unpredictable?" He rushed to add. "Not in a bad way. Just, not part of the routine. She works hard to make things beautiful. Maybe next time just confirm before showing up." That term, confirm, made me feel like an alien. A visitor who needed permission to be with family. I stood up slowly. "Thanks for stopping by, Ricardo. I think our dessert is about to arrive." He gave me a small shrug and returned to their table. Beatrice saw him and said something to him as he sat down. He responded with a whisper, and she laughed. And then I felt it. The deep, penetrating break of something finally breaking free. It wasn't about the dinner. Nor was it about the table. It was about the years of being the forgotten sister. The reserved seat that only counted if someone else canceled. I remembered the holidays when our gifts were typically last-minute thoughts. She forgot to write Sophia's name on the birthday card. Once she invited the whole family to her beach house, except us, and explained it was simply a logistical matter. I remembered everything. And for the first time, I wasn't going to swallow it. The waiter reappeared, pushing a cart so huge it needed 2 staff members to maneuver. On top was a monstrous 3-tier dessert, molten chocolate lava cake, brownie towers, ice cream scoops balanced with chocolate shavings, dripping caramel sauce, strawberries covered with gold flakes, real gold, and a small fondant plaque that said, "For the best mom and the most incredible girl." Sophia's eyes nearly popped out of her head. The entire restaurant audibly gasped. Phones appeared. Everyone started applauding. The waiter lit a line of sparkling candles around the base, creating a scene reminiscent of a Las Vegas show. Beatrice's face froze on the other side of the room. Marcelo returned as if by magic and patted my back. "Enjoy, ladies. It's on the house." I blinked. "Wait, what?" He smiled. "Your story kind of touched me, and honestly, it's good to see someone treat their daughter right. Consider it a manager's privilege." I was stunned. Sophia dug in and laughed, chocolate smearing on her cheek. "Mom, this is amazing." I laughed, overwhelmed but grateful. It is love. It really is. Beatrice didn't come to us after that. But she didn't need to. I could see the tension in her jaw. She gripped her purse a little tighter. The gradual terror that set in when she realized she was no longer in control of the room. But the big surprise happened when the bill arrived. Not mine. Hers. Because you see, Beatrice had no idea, and no one else at her table knew. that the restaurant had a policy about large private dining reservations. On Friday nights, groups using the private space must spend a minimum of 4,500 Brazilian reals. If you don't reach the minimum, they don't cancel the charge. They simply charge anyway. And someone at that table had just ordered sparkling water and salad. But I didn't point it out. I didn't need to. Because the manager was already approaching their table, and the expression on her face when she saw the amount on the bill. Well, let me just say, the look she gave me from across the room was worth every sparkling candle. When we left the restaurant that night, Sophia was still vibrating with sugar and attention. She was holding one of the golden strawberries like a prize, recounting every detail of the dessert spectacle with the frantic enthusiasm only an 11-year-old can have. I smiled and nodded as she talked, but my mind was somewhere else entirely. The wave of adrenaline from Beatrice's frozen expression, the manager's silent support, and the silent power of being noticed began to pass. And now I felt it. That strange, hollow feeling in your chest when you finally stand up for yourself. That question you don't want to ask. Did I go too far? I didn't say anything during the drive home. Sophia fell asleep midway, still murmuring about the lava cake mountain. But my mind was racing. Not exactly guilt, but rather exhaustion. Emotional hangover, perhaps. Standing up to Beatrice didn't solve the problem. It didn't rewrite the past. It didn't change the fact that I was still the forgotten sister. The one who was only useful when someone needed help or a discreet favor. That night was a spark, yes. But I could feel it immediately. It wouldn't change how the rest of the family saw me. If anything, it might reinforce their silent doubts. Marina is emotional. Exaggerates. Makes a scene. And maybe I did exaggerate. I don't regret giving Sophia something wonderful, but I worried if the special dessert, the 3-tier extravaganza, seemed petty. Was I trying to give my daughter a memory, or was I trying to get revenge? That question lingered for several weeks. Beatrice didn't reach out after the dinner. No text, no call, not even a passive-aggressive message in a group with a link to birthday photos. I didn't expect an apology. She had never apologized for anything in her life. But the silence felt heavy. Intentional. My mother, of course, got involved in the way only she could. I heard things got a bit strange at the restaurant, she stated on the phone one afternoon, stretching the word strange as if it were thorny. Strange. I repeated, trying to keep my voice calm. She said there was no room for me and Sophia. We had to dine separately. Well, she began with a sigh that seemed rehearsed. You have to understand, Beatrice puts so much effort into these events. Planning for the children, making sure everything goes well. Maybe you should have communicated better. I closed my eyes. There it was. Mom, I said. She invited me. Told me the time and place. Said nothing about confirmation or limited seating. I'm just saying, maybe if you had called beforehand. She told me I should have called when we got there. A pause. Well, maybe she was just stressed. And I heard about an elaborate dessert. I almost laughed. So now I'm the problem? I didn't say that, she replied. But her tone said exactly that. The conversation ended shortly after. No resolution, no support. Just more of the same. Walking on eggshells around Beatrice's feelings and minimizing mine. That's when I realized something else. Beatrice's actions didn't bring the situation to rock bottom. It was rock bottom because I kept expecting strangers to suddenly understand me. I had spent most of my life shrinking to fit into their comfort zones. Minimizing victories, laughing off offenses, and telling myself, that's just how she is. But what was I teaching Sophia if I kept doing that? I didn't want her to grow up believing that love meant tolerating rudeness, or that family meant absence of boundaries. I wanted her to know her worth. So I had to start showing mine. So I stopped waiting for validation. I stopped responding to group conversations that were just to celebrate Beatrice's achievements. I didn't give gifts for the twins' next event. I didn't explain myself, didn't defend myself. I just stepped back. In the silence that followed, something unexpected happened. I started breathing again. For the first time in a long time, I wasn't spending energy trying to navigate family politics. I wasn't rehearsing responses or replaying discussions in my head. I had space. And in that space, I started focusing on something I had neglected for too long. Myself. I had always been creative. Writing, drawing, creating. But I had hidden that side for years, working hard to make Sophia's life stable after the divorce. I worked in an office doing administrative work. It paid the bills, yes. But it never satisfied me. One night, after Sophia went to sleep, I pulled my old sketchbook from the back of the closet and started doodling. It was strange at first, like resuming a language you hadn't spoken in years. Then muscle memory took over. A doodle became a drawing. A drawing became a full page of illustration. And one night I shared some of them anonymously on an online art forum to see what others thought. The reaction surprised me. People loved my work. Really loved it. There were multiple comments, questions, compliments, and even some commission requests. I hadn't even thought about making money from it, but now it didn't seem so impossible. I started dedicating 2 hours every night after Sophia went to sleep, not working or overexerting myself, just creating. I finally felt like myself after years. And Sophia noticed. "You've been in a better mood lately," she commented one morning at breakfast. I blinked. "Really?" "Yeah," she said. "You don't look tired anymore." I smiled and messed up her hair. "It's because I went back to drawing." "Cool." She smiled. "Can you teach me?" That moment, that single small phrase, meant more than all of Beatrice's apologies ever could. Things improved from there. I launched an art page on Instagram and worked on some small projects, logos, pet portraits, and even a book cover for an independent author. It wasn't a life-changing amount, but it was something. A side income. A secondary identity. Something I owned. Sophia and I started having art nights every Friday. We'd put on music, grab snacks, and draw together. Sometimes she tried to imitate my style. Other times she made bizarre abstract things I would never have thought of. I could see how it strengthened her confidence the same way it restored my voice. And with each passing week, the resentments diminished. I no longer needed revenge. I didn't want Beatrice to get hurt. I just needed to heal myself. But of course, family doesn't let you leave in peace. It started with a birthday invitation. Not Sophia's. Mine. Beatrice's handwritten card arrived in the mail. "We're having a small joint birthday dinner for Mom and Marina. Family only. Dress well. RSVP." I looked at it for a long time. No call, text message, or apology. Just a perfectly written invitation as if nothing had happened. And the location? The same restaurant. Private room. Friday night. I almost threw the card away. But something stopped me. Because I knew Beatrice. This wasn't an olive branch. It was a reset. An attempt to regain control, rewrite history, and reintroduce me to the fold on her terms. But I wasn't the same person anymore. I wasn't going back to be silent. And if Beatrice wanted a dinner, she was going to get more than she expected. The invitation sat on my desk for a whole week. Not because I was deciding whether to go or not. Deep down, I already knew the answer. I was going, but not as the Marina they expected. Not as the quiet sister who nodded in agreement while being ignored. Not as the doormat who smiled through clenched teeth and tried to keep the peace. That Marina was gone. This was more than just a birthday dinner. It was a test. Beatrice was trying to regain control. She had chosen the restaurant. She included me this time, but not with warmth. With calculation. It was as if she was saying, "See, I can be generous when I want. But only if you behave." Except this time, I wasn't there to behave. I was there to make a statement. And I knew exactly how to do it. The first thing I did was call the restaurant. For Marcelo. I didn't expect him to remember me. It had been over a month since the twins' dinner. But when I announced my name and described the 3-tier dessert, he laughed. "How could I forget?" he said. "You're the woman who made my pastry chef cry." But in a good way. She said that was the most fun thing she's assembled in years. I smiled. "Well, I have a somewhat delicate situation, and I think you might be the only person who can help me." He listened as I described the invitation, the setup, and how Beatrice operated. I kept my tone casual but honest. I didn't want to lie or exaggerate. I just wanted him to understand. And he understood. "Let me guess," Marcelo said dryly. "Private room again. Limited seating. Everything perfectly orchestrated." "Exactly," I replied. "Let me check the reservation." I heard clicks in the background. Yes. Friday night. Same table, reserved for 12 people. Your mother, Beatrice, her husband, the twins, you, your daughter, and probably some companions. My chest tightened. 12 chairs. Just enough to make it look like a family gathering, but not enough to invite anyone outside the immediate circle. Beatrice had declared herself the gatekeeper of admission once again. "I want to mess things up a bit," I said. Nothing loud, nothing petty. Just something to remind her I'm not playing by her rules anymore. Marcelo hesitated. "You want a separate table again?" "No," I replied. "This time, I want a seat at that table. And I want it to be on my terms." And that's how it started. Over the next 3 days, I started putting things in motion. Step 1. Bring someone she didn't expect. Beatrice always made subtle comments about my social life. At family gatherings, she would say things like, "Marina is too busy to date. She has Sophia and, well, her little drawings." Or, "Some people are made to be mothers. Some are made to be single. And some are made to be both." Passive-aggressive garbage. She loved playing the game where she insinuated I was somehow less complete because I hadn't remarried or paraded someone new around. And normally I didn't care. But this time I had an ace up my sleeve. I had started talking to Renato about a month ago. We met through an online art community. He was a graphic designer based in another city, with a sharp sense of humor and a calm intensity that reminded me of myself. We had only been out 3 times, but we clicked. He wasn't flashy, didn't need to be the center of attention. But he captivated me. So I called him. "This might sound crazy," I started. "But would you be willing to go to a family dinner with me this Friday?" "Dinner," he said, cautious. "At a restaurant where my sister once exiled me and my daughter to the margins?" A pause. Now I'm interested. I totally understand if it's too early or too weird, but... "I'll go," he interrupted me. Just like that. Step 2, dress the part. I don't mean fancy. Beatrice expected something special. She lived for aesthetics. I wanted something sharper, more subtle, more confident. I found a fitted navy blazer I hadn't worn in years. I paired it with a clean white blouse, black pants, and heels that didn't scream trying too hard, but still made a statement. Sophia wore a new dark green dress with flats. Renato, of course, looked beautifully understated in a gray shirt and dark jeans that made Beatrice look like she had tried too hard. Step 3. Control the narrative before she could. Beatrice thrived on surprises. She loved how people were caught off guard and rushed to react. That's how she maintained power, by dictating the pace. So I turned the tables. On the morning of the dinner, I posted a photo on my Instagram art page. It wasn't flashy, just a photo of Sophia and me drawing in the park, with the caption, "A year ago, I was stuck in a place that drained me. Tonight, I celebrate not just my birthday, but the silent changes that saved my life, and the people who made it worth rebuilding." It exploded more than I imagined. Some of my illustrations had become semi-viral in the last month, and I think many people were waiting for a glimpse behind the curtain. Comments poured in. Support. Encouragement. People rooting for me. Beatrice follows me on Instagram. I knew she had seen it. She liked the post in less than an hour, but didn't comment. Which, in her language, was more powerful than an insult. Step 4, arrive last. She always liked to make a grand entrance. This time, I gave her the spotlight. I let her warm up in it. I even called Marcelo ahead and asked, "If we arrive a few minutes late, can you make sure someone escorts us personally?" He laughed. "You got it." And that's what we did. Sophia, Renato, and I arrived exactly 7 minutes late. A well-dressed hostess greeted us and guided us down the familiar hallway. I could already hear the conversation in the private dining area. Beatrice's voice very loud, laughing. Ricardo interjecting with one of his boring stories. My mother asking questions no one was answering. When the door opened, everything stopped. All heads turned. Beatrice froze mid-sentence. Her eyes moved between me, Renato, and Sophia. Then she smiled. Too tight. Too fast. "Oh, Marina," she responded. "You're here." We were starting to worry. "I texted you," I replied easily. We were on our way. Traffic was a nightmare. She gave Renato a wavering smile. "And this is Renato," I introduced, placing my hand on his back as we entered. "A good friend of mine. He's a designer." Renato extended his hand politely. "Thanks for having me." Beatrice took it and dropped it too quickly. "Well, we hadn't planned for companions. Good thing the reservation was for 12, I said, looking at the table. 12 beautiful seats. There was no way out. We sat down. Renato on one side, me on the other, with Sophia between us. My mother was sitting across, looking slightly shocked. Ricardo raised his glass in a half-hearted toast. The birthday girl finally arrived. Beatrice tried to recover. She directed the conversation to neutral topics. Talked about a business trip Ricardo had taken. Described the twins' current extracurricular activities. She even dropped a passive-aggressive joke. We all thought Marina was leaving us in suspense. Classic artistic temperament, right? I smiled. I like to make an entrance. I guess it runs in the family. Ricardo laughed. My mother looked at the menu. But the tension was palpable. Renato behaved like a professional. Asked thoughtful questions. Complimented the twins' activities. Laughed at the right moments. He didn't overshare, didn't fawn, didn't try to prove anything. He was simply there, relaxed and confident. And that bothered Beatrice more than bringing a spotlight and a marching band would have. When the appetizers arrived, she was already spiraling. You know, she said suddenly, sipping her wine. Marina has always been the mysterious one, the artist, the free spirit. We never know what she's working on, do we? I put my fork on the plate. Actually, I've been working on a children's book. Illustrations and everything. It was accepted by a publisher last month. A silence fell over the table. My mother's eyes widened. Really? I nodded. It's about a child who finds strength in being different. Inspired by Sophia. Renato leaned in and gently squeezed my hand. It's amazing. My mother murmured. Really? Sophia, God bless her, spoke at that moment. And she also has over 50 commissions now. And her art was featured in an online magazine. I hadn't asked her to say that. Didn't even know she had been paying attention. But the pride in her words moved me. Beatrice blinked. Well, how cute. Marina always had a vivid imagination. Good that she's finally putting it to use. Sophia looked at her, confused by the condescension, but I just smiled. Some of us busier than others, I said lightly. And with that, the balance shifted. Not through screaming, not through show, but through presence and proof. I was no longer a supporting role in Beatrice's well-curated family story. I was rewriting the script. But I wasn't finished yet. Because dessert hadn't arrived. Neither had the main surprise. The clinking of forks, murmurs of uncomfortable compliments, and occasional forced laughter filled the room like background noise. When dessert arrived, Beatrice perked up, her chance to retake the situation. Should we do a shared dessert again? She asked the table, as if we had done at the twins' birthday. Something special to celebrate Mom and Marina together. My mother nodded graciously. Ricardo gave a non-committal shrug. The twins, who were half asleep by this point, didn't care. Beatrice looked at me, waiting. What do you think, Marina? I sipped my coffee and met her eyes. Actually, I already arranged something special. She blinked. You arranged. I spoke with Marcelo last week. He has something planned. Before she could react, the lights dimmed slightly, just enough to calm the atmosphere. Then it rolled in. A cart carried by 3 waiters, accompanied by a 4th holding a tray of sparkling glasses. The cart contained not 1, but 2 elaborate desserts. The first was elegant and sophisticated, a 3-layer cake decorated with edible flowers, white chocolate shavings, and a golden plaque that said, "For the matriarch who kept us together." Clearly for my mother. The second was an artistic masterpiece. A chocolate sculpture molded like an open book, with pages made of transparent sugar hand-painted with small illustrations, scenes reminiscent of my work. Around it, strawberries dipped in dark chocolate, colorful macarons arranged like a painter's palette, and a small sculpted fondant plaque for Marina, who always drew her own story. The entire restaurant erupted in applause. Sophia gasped. Mom, this is beautiful. Renato smiled, clearly impressed. Wow. My mother brought her hand to her chest, eyes welling up. Marina, it's beautiful. Marcelo appeared as if by magic beside our table. Happy birthday, Mrs. Marina. And congratulations, Mrs. Helena. He waved to the waiters, who began serving. Beatrice was frozen. Her face was a carefully composed mask, but I could see the cracks. The clenched jaw. The fingers wrapping the napkin too tightly. The slight tremor in her smile. How extravagant, she finally managed to say. It's my turn to do something memorable, I replied softly. Ricardo cleared his throat. Well, that's something. But it wasn't over yet. As everyone savored the dessert, Marcelo leaned in and murmured, "There's one more thing if you still want it." I nodded slightly. He disappeared for a moment and returned carrying a thin leather envelope. He placed it discreetly beside me. I took a deep breath. It was now or never. Actually, I began placing my fork on the plate. There's something I wanted to share with all of you tonight. The table fell silent. Beatrice looked at me cautiously. I picked up the envelope and held it in my hands for a moment. Before Dad died, he arranged some things. Things that only recently came to light because there were conditions attached to them. My mother frowned. Marina, what are you talking about? I passed the envelope across the table to her. Dad established a trust fund. One for each of us. But the language was a bit specific. The conditions were conditional. Beatrice visibly paled. What? What conditions? My mother opened the envelope and began reading. Her eyes widened. He saw how things were going, I continued calmly. The dynamics. The favoritism. The silences. And he wanted to correct it. Not through confrontation, that wasn't his style, but through consequences. Ricardo leaned forward. What kind of consequences? The family cottage, I replied. The one Beatrice has been renting on Airbnb for the last 2 summers. Dad left control to me. You could hear a pin drop. Beatrice snatched the envelope from my mother and examined the papers like a drowning woman looking for a rope. This can't be right. My name is on the usage contract. It is, I confirmed. On the usage contract. Not on the property. The deed has been in a trust this whole time. And the conditions state that if any beneficiary engages in exclusionary conduct against another, particularly involving their children, the trust can be reorganized. John looked over her shoulder. Is this real? Check with the lawyer, I said. His number is on the last page. Beatrice didn't respond. Her hands trembled as she held the papers. I stood up slowly, feeling the weight of the moment. I don't want the cottage, Beatrice. I don't want your parties or your spotlight. But I will protect what's mine. And I won't let my daughter be treated like a second-class citizen in her own family. No one spoke. The only sound was a fork hitting a plate. I took a deep breath. So here's the deal. I'm taking over the cottage lease starting next month. You can remove it from your Airbnb listings. I've already spoken with the management company. Beatrice looked like she had swallowed glass. Sophia and I are going to spend a few weeks there this summer. Just the 2 of us. No drama. No performance. I turned to my mother. And from now on, I'll decide when and if we participate in family gatherings. If I'm invited, I'll assume it's sincere. If not, I'm at peace with that too. She gave a hesitant nod, tears in her eyes. Maybe guilt. Maybe something deeper. But she said nothing. No resentments, I continued, looking around the table. But I won't keep showing up to be someone's background. Renato stood beside me and placed his hand on my back. Sophia looked at me with admiration. For the first time all evening, I smiled genuinely. Thank you for dinner. We left while dessert was still being served. The door closed behind us, and I could still hear the silence reverberating in that beautiful little dining room. But it wasn't my silence to carry anymore. The following week was strangely quiet. No messages from Beatrice. No angry calls. No passive-aggressive group messages. Just silence. My mother called once, her voice choked. Marina, I didn't know. About the trust. About what your father planned. I know, Mom, I replied gently. He never said anything to me. Never mentioned he was worried about how things were. I paused. I think he saw more than he let on. She was silent for a long moment. Then, I'm sorry. For not seeing too. For not defending you when I should have. Tears burned in my eyes, but I didn't let them fall. Thank you, Mom. That means a lot. Are you coming for Christmas? She asked hesitantly. I'll think about it, I replied honestly. But whatever my decision, it won't be based on obligation. It'll be based on feeling welcome. She accepted that. And for the first time in years, our conversation ended without tension. Beatrice, on the other hand, remained in screaming silence. But I heard through family conversations, those whispered talks that eventually reach you, that she was furious. Not just angry. Humiliated. She had built her entire identity around being in command. The one who had it all together. The one worthy of envy. And I had silently, calmly dismantled it. Part of me felt bad. Not for the confrontation, that was necessary. But for the fall. Beatrice had spent her whole life building a facade, and I had cracked it. But then I remembered Sophia. The way she looked at me at that first dinner when she realized we had no seats. The polite, apprehensive smile she gave, trying to be brave. And I remembered this was never about revenge. It was about teaching my daughter that she deserved space. That her mother wasn't an afterthought. That we both mattered. The following months were transformative. My children's book was released in November. It wasn't a New York Times bestseller, but it sold consistently. Local schools invited me for readings. Libraries booked me for illustration workshops. And the best part? Sophia came with me to every event. She helped set up, distributed bookmarks, smiled proudly when children asked me questions. That's my mom, she would say. Every time. With so much pride. Renato and I became more serious. We didn't rush anything, but it was good. Stable. He made Sophia laugh. He made me feel seen. And unlike Beatrice, I didn't need to show him off. Didn't need to prove anything. Our relationship existed in its own quiet space, outside the spotlight. The real turning point came in December. Sophia and I were packing for our first trip to the cottage, Just the two of us, exactly as I had promised, when my phone rang. It was Beatrice. I looked at the name flashing on the screen for a long moment before answering. Hello. Silence. Then, Marina. It's me. I know, I replied calmly. Another pause. I wanted to call for weeks, but I didn't know what to say. I waited. I was wrong, she finally said, her voice cracked. About everything. About the dinner. About how I treated you. About Sophia. My chest tightened. I didn't realize how much I was, she stopped. How much I was hurting you. Excluding you. Making you feel invisible. I was so focused on keeping everything perfect, on having everything under control, that I lost sight of what really mattered. I sat on the edge of the bed. Sophia looked at me questioningly from across the room. I signaled that everything was okay. Why are you telling me this now? I asked softly. Beatrice took a shaky breath. Because I saw you. At your book launch. I went. I stayed in the back. And I saw Sophia looking at you. The way she talked about you. Her happiness. Her voice broke. And I realized my children never look at me like that. They love me, I know they do. But there's something missing. Because I've been so busy staging the perfect life that I forgot to actually live. Tears burned in my eyes. I'm not asking for forgiveness, she continued. Not yet. I don't deserve it. But I wanted you to know I'm trying. I'm in therapy. I'm working on it. And if you're ever willing to try again, I promise it will be different. I wiped away tears. Beatrice, you don't have to answer now, she interrupted. I just wanted you to know that I see you. Finally, the call ended shortly after. Sophia approached and sat beside me. Was everything okay? I put my arm around her and pulled her close. Yes, love. Everything was okay. I don't know if Beatrice and I will ever have the relationship we should have had. I don't know if she'll really change, or if this was just a moment of clarity that will fade. But for the first time, I feel hope. Not hope that things will go back to how they were, because how they were was broken. Hope that we can build something new. Something real. And if we can't, I'm at peace with that too. Because I learned something vital these last months. My worth doesn't depend on Beatrice's validation. My happiness doesn't require her approval. My daughter doesn't need her acceptance to know she's loved. We have each other. We have our space. We have our art and our Friday nights drawing together, and our cottage waiting for us in the mountains. And that's more than enough. Sophia and I spent Christmas at the cottage. Just the two of us. Renato visited us for a few days, but most of the time it was just us. We drew. We went hiking. We baked cookies that burned on the first attempt and came out perfect on the second. We stayed up late playing board games by the fireplace. And one night, while Sophia was sleeping, I sat on the porch with a cup of hot tea and looked at the stars. My phone vibrated. A message from Beatrice. It was a photo of her and the twins. No makeup, no rehearsed poses. Just 3 real people genuinely smiling. The caption said, "Trying to learn to be real. Thank you for showing me how." I smiled and replied, "Merry Christmas, Beatrice." It wasn't forgiveness. Not yet. But it was a beginning. And sometimes a beginning is all you need. When Sophia woke up the next morning, she dragged herself to the kitchen rubbing her eyes. "Mom? Why are you up so early?" I was sitting at the kitchen table, my sketchbook open, sketching ideas for my next book. Couldn't sleep, I admitted. Too many ideas in my head. She approached and looked over my shoulder. "What's it about?" I smiled. "It's about a girl who learns that her silence has power, that not shouting doesn't mean being weak, and that sometimes the quietest people are the ones who change everything." Sophia hugged me from behind. "Sounds like it's about you." I laughed, eyes welling up. "I think it's a bit about both of us, love." She sat beside me and picked up her own sketchbook. "Can I draw with you?" "Always," I replied. And there, in that quiet, cozy kitchen, as snow fell softly outside and the fire crackled in the fireplace, we drew together. Not as an act of revenge. Not as a statement. Just as ourselves. Finally free. Finally seen. Finally home. Epilogue, 6 months later. The launch of my second book was bigger than the first. A real bookstore, complete with banners, signing tables, and a line that stretched out the door. Sophia was by my side, helping distribute bookmarks and smiling at everyone who passed by. Renato was organizing the table. My mother was in the front row, eyes shining with pride. And in the back of the room, discreetly, was Beatrice. She didn't come to the front. Didn't make it about her. She just stood there watching. And when our eyes met, she waved. It wasn't much, but it was something. After the event, while we were packing everything up, Sophia pulled my sleeve. Mom? Aunt Beatrice is still here. I looked up. Beatrice was waiting near the door, holding a copy of my book. I walked to her slowly. Hi. Hi, she replied softly. It was beautiful. The book. The event. You. Thank you. She hesitated, then held out the book. Could you sign it for me? I took it and opened to the title page. I thought carefully about what to write. Finally, I wrote, For Beatrice, it's never too late to redraw your story. With love, Marina. She read it and tears streamed down her face. Thank you for not giving up on me, even when I deserved it. We're sisters, I replied. And sometimes love means giving space. And sometimes it means giving a second chance. She nodded, wiping her eyes. I'm still working on it. The therapy. Being better. More real. I know, I said gently. And I'm proud of you for trying. We stood there for a moment. Two sisters who had spent their entire lives on opposite sides of an invisible war, finally finding common ground. Do you and Sophia want to come to dinner next week? She asked hesitantly. Nothing extravagant. Just family. For real this time. I looked at Sophia, who was watching me hopefully. We'd love to, I replied. And for the first time in my entire life, when I hugged my sister, I didn't feel thorns. I felt possibility. Final reflection. People always ask me how I managed to turn things around with Beatrice. How I went from being invisible to being seen. From being stepped on to standing my ground. And my answer is always the same. I didn't change Beatrice. I changed myself. I stopped waiting for permission to exist. I stopped shrinking to fit into small spaces. I stopped valuing peace over my own dignity. And when I did that, when I finally claimed my space, my voice, my worth, the world around me had to adjust. Some people, like Beatrice, eventually come around. They realize what they lost. They do the work. Others don't. And that's okay too. Because in the end, this wasn't about making Beatrice see me. It was about me seeing myself. About teaching Sophia to see herself. About building a life that didn't need anyone's approval to be valid. And now we have that. A life built not on performance or perfection, but on authenticity, on art, on love, on two people, mother and daughter, who learn that silence has power, and that sometimes the best stories are the ones you write for yourself. Page by page, line by line, until you finally draw the ending you always deserved.